Good morning, my dear students. I welcome all of you to today's science class. So, children, we have already completed the previous chapter, that is combustion and flame. And today we will be beginning the next chapter, a new chapter, that is chapter number 8, cell structure and its function. So first let us see what are we going to learn from this chapter. So in this chapter we will be discussing and understanding how the cell was discovered. Yes, so we will be understanding about the discovery of the cell. We'll also be discussing about the number of cell, the shape and size of the cell. We'll also be discussing about cell structure and its function. After this chapter, you'll also be able to explain the parts of the cell membrane, nucleus and cytoplasm. And also you will be able to compare between the plant and the animal cell. So let us begin today's class. So today's learning outcomes are, after today's class you will be able to explain how cell was discovered, who discovered cell. You'll also be able to understand that cell is the basic structure of living organisms, and you'll be able to compare the number of cell, shape and size of different organisms. Children, now let's learn how the discovery of cell took place. The discovery of cell was done by Robert Hooke in the year 1665. He observed slices of cork under a simple magnifying device. Cork is a part of the bark of a tree and it is a dead cell. He took thin slices of cork and observed them under a microscope. He noticed partitioned boxes or compartments in the cork cell, and he also found out that it looked like a honeycomb structure. He also noticed that one box was separated from the other by a wall or a partition. So Robert Hooke coined the term cell for each box. So after the discovery of the cell by Robert Hooke, many other scientists also observed the cell of the living organisms under the microscope. As the new microscope were invented, the scientists could study about the cell and its structure and also about its functions very easily. So today we know a lot about the structure and function of the cell. So here is a picture of the cork cell which was observed by Robert Hooke. Children, when we see a house being constructed, what do we find? That bricks is the basic building block of the house. Similarly, in living body also, the cell is the basic building block of the organism and it is called the structural unit. The building which is constructed, though, is built using similar bricks, but you'll find that the shape and the structure, the design differs. Similarly, in the living world, the organisms differ from one another, but all are made up of cells. So you'll find different living organisms around us, but all the living organisms are made up of what? They are made up of cells. And this is the reason why we say that the cells are the basic building structure or the basic structural unit of living organisms. Cells in the living organisms are complex living structures, unlike non-living bricks. Yes, so since the cells are the structural unit of living organisms, we can see that it is actually the complex living structures of which the living organisms are made up of. Now children, can you say that whether we can see cell without a microscope or not? Obviously we can see a cell without microscope, that is the egg of a hen is a single cell and it is big enough to see without a microscope. But most of the cells cannot be seen without microscope. They are small and they can be seen only under the microscope. So here you can see that the bricks resembles the building block of a house, and the cells is the building block of the living organisms. And here you can see the egg of a hen, which is a single cell, and to see this single cell we do not need any microscope. So we can see the egg of a hen without the microscope. Children, what do you think that how do the scientists study the different structure of cell under the microscope? Actually, they stain the cell and then they observe it under the microscope. Staining is a type of dyeing process where stain such as saffronin is used to observe the structure of the cell clearly under the microscope. So when the stains are used, the structures of the cell is colored differently, and then the structures become clear under the microscope, and as a result the scientists can study the structures very easily. So the living organism is made up of a number of cells. There are number of cells present in the living body, and also the shape and size of the cells are different. There are trillions and millions of cells in a living organisms. They are of different shapes and size, and their organs also vary in shape, size and number of cells. But whatever be the difference, the living organisms are made up of cells. That means all living organisms are made up of cells, and so the cell is called the structural unit of living organism. Now let's find out about the number of cells. So organisms can be made up of more than one cell, and when organisms are made up of more than one cell, they are called multicellular organisms. An organism with billions of cells begins its life from a single cell, which is in fertilized egg. The fertilized egg cell multiplies and the number of cells become more. That means it increases as development proceeds. So there are also organisms which do not have many cells, but they have a single cell. So those organisms are called single-celled organism. But even though they have lesser cell, the number of cells does not affect the functioning of the cells or of the organism. So a single cell organism like amoeba can capture and digest food, respire, excrete, grow and reproduce with the help of that single cell. So amoeba is an organism which is having only one cell. It is a single-celled organism. The similar functions in multicellular organisms are carried out by groups of specialized cells which form different tissues. So since multicellular organisms have more number of cells, so the similar cells group together to form the tissue, and they will perform a particular function, a specialized function, and those tissues will again combine together to form the organ, and the organs combine together to form the organ system, and ultimately it forms the individual. In a multicellular organism, since the number of cells are more, there is division of labor. That means a single cell do not do all the work or all the activities. The activities which takes place inside a multicellular organism is distributed among the cells which have similar functions, and those cells which have similar functions, they combine together to form the tissue. So here you can see the picture of amoeba. Amoeba is a single-celled organism. A single-celled organism is capable of performing all the activities required for the survival of the organism. Children, look at the shape of amoeba. Can you define the shape of amoeba? Amoeba has no definite shape. It is irregular in structure. So you can see some projection protruding out of the cell. So these projections which are protruding out of the cell is called pseudopodia. So with the help of pseudopodia, it can move from one place to another by changing the shape of the cells. So the pseudopodia is also called false feet. Now we can see that amoeba has no definite shape unlike other organisms. It keeps on changing its shape. A white blood cell in human blood is another example of single cell which can change its shape. But while white blood cell is a cell, amoeba is a full-fledged organism capable of independent existence. Now children, can you see, does the shape of the cell of different or present in different organisms keeps on changing? And what about the shape of the cell in the multicellular organisms? So obviously the shape of the cell depends on the specific function performed by the cell. So generally cells are round, spherical or elongated, long and pointed at both ends. But some are branched like the nerve cell or a neuron. So the nerve cell receives and transfers information or messages from one part of the body to another, and it also helps in controlling and coordinating the work of different parts of the body. So here is a picture of the different cells which is present in human body. So these are all human cells. Now children, can you tell me which part of the cell gives the shape to the cell? It is actually the cell membrane. Cell membrane is a structure which encloses the component of the cell, and we'll be discussing about the cell membrane in the later classes. So here you can see that the shape of the human cell is different. So you can see that some cells are spherical or round in shape. Then this has a shape which is pointed at the ends. Yes, the smooth muscle cells and white blood cells are round in shape, and you can see that the neurons have a branched shape, and the shape of the neuron is quite different from the other cells present in human body. Now children, let's see whether the size of the cells found in different living organisms are same or not. So the size of the cells in living organisms may be small as a millionth of a meter, that is micrometer or micron, or may be as large as a few centimeter. However, most of the cells are microscopic in size and are not visible without the microscope. So we cannot see most of the cells with unaided eyes. We have to observe those cells under the microscope because most of the cells are very small in size, and the smallest cell can vary from 0.2 to 0.5 micrometer, and the egg of a hen is one cell which can be seen without microscope. We can see it with unaided eyes. So that is one example of a cell which can be seen. So when we boil the egg, we find that the inside of the egg solidifies. The white part is called the albumin and the yellow part is called the yolk. So both are a part of the cell. Now if we think about the size of the cell in an elephant and in a rat. So if we compare the size of the cells present in an elephant and rat, what do you think? That the size of the cells in elephant would be larger or that in a rat? Actually, the size of the organism does not matter. The cell size depends on the function it performs. So if we take an example of a cell, the nerve cell in both elephant and rat is branched and long. So it depends on the function of the cell. What is the function of that particular cell in the living body? And the function of the nerve cell both in elephant and a rat is the transferring of messages from one part of the body to another. So the size of the cell is actually related to its function, and it is not related to the size of the body of the animal or the plant. So I hope that all of you have understood about the discovery of the cell and the different shape, size and the number of cell that is present in the living body. So now let us summarize what we have learned. So we have learned that Robert Hooke in 1665 observed slices of cork under a simple magnifying device. That means he observed it under a simple microscope. Cells in the living organisms are the basic structural units. Organisms may have single or multiple number of cells. So when it is having a single cell, it is called single-celled organism or unicellular organism, and when it has more than one cell, it is called multicellular organism. Generally, cells are round, spherical or elongated. Some cells are long and pointed at the ends, both the ends. They exhibit spindle shape. The size of cells in living organisms may be as small as a millionth of a meter, micrometer or micron, or may be as large as a few centimeters. So this is all for today's class. Thank you and have a great day.